For those of you who didn't grow up in the 1980s, you didn't know what it was like to grow up with The Princess Bride. This movie is probably my most rented film of the 1980s, of my childhood. As big of a fan of Indiana Jones as I am, as big of a fan of Star Wars as I am, as big of a fan of Die Hard and all the other great franchises around that same time, there is no greater movie than The Princess Bride in my mind for most times rented. Right. And it's always a movie I go back to. It's always a movie I fall in love with every time I rewatch it. And it's been over 30 years, 32 years since its release. And it's never lost its hold on me whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure if you're a fan of this movie, you're listening to me right now going like, yeah, no, I completely agree. 100% agree, Matt. You're totally right. The Princess Bride is an epically amazing movie. So why are we talking about it? Because of this. This morning, Variety puts out this tweet. Sony Pictures Entertainment CEO Tony Vinciquerra says that very famous people whose names I won't use want to redo Norman Lear's The Princess Bride. So for one, just look at, first and foremost, this tweet, woefully misinformed. It's not Norman Lear's The Princess Bride. That is just one of the dumbest things ever. It is Rob Reiner and William Goldman's The Princess Bride. It's Cary Elwes. It's Mandy Patinkin. It's Andre the Giant. It's Robin Wright. It's, William Shawn. It's, it is, or Wallace Shawn. God, I'm probably screwing his name up. Damn it. I was on a roll. It's all of these other people. Fred Savage, Peter Falk. It's all of these other people that were in this movie. Christopher Guest. I can't even forget Christopher Guest because that comes into play later on. There's so many people. Carol Kane, Billy Crystal. God, amazing. This movie is so full of talent. And to call it Norman Lear's The Princess Bride is such a slap in the face. You know why? Because you know what Norman did? Norman was the financier. Okay. And I'm not knocking the dude. Okay. He helped pony up $16 million to get the movie made back in the 1980s. $16 million was the cost of this movie. And it was considered a bit of a flop, but we are going to talk about that. But anyway, calling it Norman Lear's The Princess Bride is just such a, what the hell? No one's having that, by the way. Anyone who even knows anything about The Princess Bride knows that he has nothing to do with it. It's ridiculous. It's nonsense. But anyway, this is the article they link to. Norman Lear won't stop. TV legend Sony deal renewal takes him to age 100. That's right. We're talking about Sony and Norman Lear and obviously The Princess Bride and obviously talks of a remake. So this popped up over on CBR, and this is basically what's been being talked about today. The Princess Bride remake has been discussed. And again, this is not something anybody wants. Period. Point blank. Full stop. Nobody wants this. No one wants a remake, except perhaps Tony Vinciquerra. I can never pronounce his name right? Because Sony is, they've done remakes well. Ghostbusters, right? They've handled franchises well. Spider-Man. They've done so many great things that obviously they know what they're doing, right? Anyway, this is what the article says. The Princess Bride may be returning in new form in the near future. A new Variety profile of Norman Lear, who produced the original film. The 97-year-old producer signed a new deal with Sony Pictures Entertainment. It's Sony CEO Tony Vinciquerra, who reveals the interest from unnamed parties in The Princess Bride, saying we have so many people coming to us and saying, we want to remake this show or that show. Very famous people whose names I won't use, but they want to redo The Princess Bride. Some people want to do animated versions of sitcoms. Not a month goes by where we don't have an idea coming in for some very big name wanting to do things with Norman. Norman hasn't done that much. He hasn't done that much. Okay, he did Princess Bride, did Fried Green Tomatoes, a couple other movies. Really not that impressive of a film career, but his TV stuff is big. One Day at a Time, I think, was him. All in the Family was him. That's how him and Rob Reiner got connected in order to do The Princess Bride. That's how they got hooked up, because Rob Reiner was meathead on All in the Family. And that's what got him connected. But the thing is, make no mistake, even though he was the money guy, it was Rob Reiner's direction and William Goldman adapting his own book that ended up taking it to the levels that of absolute love people have for it. Anyway, here's why they would want to remake it, by the way, why they're floating it out there. Look at the domestic gross on this thing, $50 or $30 million total domestic gross. It wasn't much more international. In fact, the international was very low. I think like $11,000 or whatever. It came out September 25th, 1987, did $30 million domestic, and that was it. So in the 80s, that was not considered a great thing. It was a $16 million budget, according to Wikipedia. They haven't updated that here for Box Office Mojo. But the thing I was kind of curious about is with home video, how well did it do in home video? Because this is a cult classic. So this is this is from thenumbers.com. We're looking at their home video sales going back to November 18th, 2007, when the 20th anniversary edition of The Princess Bride came out. And I think that was the first DVD iteration of the film, was the 20th anniversary edition of it. Now, going all the way down to August 27th, 2017, so a full 10 years later, well, 9 years and, 9 months later, we can see here that according to this, there was about $50 million earned in home video profits for this movie. They've released the 30th anniversary edition on Blu-ray, and I think it's even in 4K now. Maybe not 4K. It should be in 4K. But the whole point here is that they've made a lot of money off of home video sales. And that's not even mentioning all the TV licensing rights that they've had over the years, right? The fact that Starz was running it almost on a loop. I remember the day that I quit smoking cigarettes, September 4th, 2006. I was craving a cigarette. I was trying not to think about it. Princess Bride was on Starz. And I'm like, this movie will take my mind off of wanting to have a cigarette. So I start watching it and I'm loving it. And my mom comes in. My mom, smoked 3 cigarettes during that hour and a half period. It made me want to die. But I remember the moment because, for one, my mom and I love that movie. And 2, it was like a significant moment in my own life for change, which I go back to that. And I think that was something that helped me kind of take my mind off smoking. Never mind my mother. It's a side story. You don't need to know that, but that's kind of where we are. But still, it's a lot of money. What I love is this, though. Jamie Lee Curtis chimed in, right? Jamie Lee Curtis fires back and says, "Oh, really?" This is the Norman Lear thing. "Well, I married the 6-fingered man, and obviously why we have stayed together for 35 years. And well, that's a fun joke there. And there's only one Princess Bride, and it's William Goldman and Rob Reiner's. Life is pain, Highness. Anyone who says differently is selling something." I love it. I absolutely love Jamie Lee Curtis for this. Firing back at Variety. And they haven't even updated it. I don't even know why. I want to know how this tweet got out there. I want to know how anyone at Variety who knows anything about movies looked at that tweet and was like, yeah, Norman Lear did that. No. Norman Lear produced that movie like Tim Burton produced 9. Right? Remember Tim Burton's 9? It was all over that. Yeah, he made a few phone calls by his own admission. All right, no, Norman Lear is nothing. He's the money guy. Not to discredit him. And I appreciate him putting up the dough, and they've all made a lot of cash together off this movie. Clearly, home video sales, TV licensing, cable licensing, all those things have all done very well for The Princess Bride. But we don't need to remake it. We don't need to remake it. And I don't think I'm the only one that's thinking that, right? We don't need to sit there and have Sony reboot another franchise. Because you know what they would do? They would sit there and they whoever's going to do it, because nowadays you can't just do a single movie. And they couldn't make this movie for $16 million. It would be $160 million. And then it would arguably end up being a flop because people would go, but why? And they could argue, see, Sony might look at it and go, well, Jumanji did well, but that was a sequel to Jumanji, not a remake. It was a reboot sequel thing, not a remake. So if they were to do this, they might sit there and go, well, we'll just do, Princess Bride #2. Here's the thing with that, though. In order to recapture the magic, you're going to need some people from the original. Andre the Giant is no longer with us, unfortunately. Wallace Shawn, that was his name. He's still around, and he's doing great. I love that guy. Mandy Patinkin is still around. Cary Elwes is still around. Rob Reiner, Kane, Billy Crystal, they're all still around, but you're missing one key element there, and that's William Goldman, because he passed away last year. The writer of the story, of the original story, who in the urban legend of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the urban legend of that was like, it was a story he was told as a kid. His grandfather passed that story down to him. That's why Peter Falk was the grandfather and Fred Savage was a grandson. This is the urban legend I've been told. And that was him describing his own experiences, learning the story. And then he filled in some of the blanks and he wrote it into its own book, and they turned it into one of the greatest movies of all time. Nobody wants a remake because you'll never be able to recapture the magic. You will never be able to recapture the glory. And all you will do is turn it into another corporate soulless remake of a film that no one asked for, no one wants, and no one will spend money for. Sony would be better off just re-releasing it on home video for like the 18th billionth time and hope to God people buy it in a 4K restoration. And maybe if they're going to do anything, do a sequel. But what you do is you pitch it to Netflix or Amazon or Apple. And if Apple is looking to purchase Sony, then they might pony up the dough to maybe do a series like a TV series, like Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, and go back in and use practical effects like we did back in the 80s and create a story like that. That's a lot of character creations back in the 80s. That would be the way to do it, but they're not going to do it because they don't care about that. They don't care about actually creating art like Rob Reiner and William Goldman did back in the day. They don't care about making any kind of art. All they care about is the money. They care about the money. They care about trying to capitalize on something they already purchased. And Sony needs the cash, don't get me wrong, which is one of the reasons why Apple's looking at buying them. And I still think Amazon's going to come in. Don't do this. If you want to repair your image with film fans, focus on Spider-Man. Leave The Princess Bride alone, because anything else is, quite frankly, inconceivable. But I leave it to you, your thoughts, your opinions. Let me know down in the comments below. Good idea, bad idea. How are you feeling? Does it make you get all angry and kind of ragey? Because that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll talk to you guys later. Please thumbs up the video. Please subscribe. Check out patreon.com/Matt Jarbo, and have yourself a great day, guys. All right, peace out.